This is LBC with Nick Abbot.
Simon Marks is our Washington correspondent and is on the line now. Hello, Simon.
Hello, Nick.
We're lucky to be alive. The eddy of insanity, the whirlpool of crazy has included this week the firing of people whose responsibility it is to keep nuclear weapons safe.
Yes, absolutely amazing. Under Elon Musk's aegis, the axe swung at the National Nuclear Safety Administration. Now, you might think the name of that administration would give you a clue that perhaps you really needed to think twice before you let over 300 workers go. They were all terminated on the orders of Elon Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency, which, let me remind you one more time, is not an official department of the United States government. And these are not, any civil servants. They are the men and women responsible for designing and maintaining the nation's cache of nuclear weapons. So after they received their termination notices by email, and after they no longer had access to any of the government's computer systems, suddenly the penny dropped. And the folks at DOGE realized that they needed to bring some of these people back because otherwise nuclear safety might be put at risk. And they have spent the weekend trying to find them. We don't yet know. I mean, literally trying to find them because, of course, they can't send them an email because they're not on the government computer systems any longer.
Oh, my God.
And there are former officials that think it will be very hard to bring all of them back to work. We don't precisely know how many actually were dismissed. The Department of Energy is challenging published numbers that say between 300 and 400 people were terminated and say the number was fewer than 50. But either way, there is definitely a bit of an effort taking place to get them back to work for fear that if they're not around and anything does go wrong with the nation's nuclear stockpile, we might all be in a degree of difficulty.
Yeah, Elon Musk, that genius is a moron, and it does give you an indication as to how careful they are being in the firing of the people from the various institutions that they barged into. They're just making this up as they go along.
Yeah, they are. And really driving this is a total disdain, I mean, bordering on a hatred for the men and women who have, in many cases, spent decades working in service of the American people. I mean, these are civil servants up and down the country from a whole variety of different government agencies. I mean, we talked last week about the shutdown of the U.S. Agency for International Development. This week, it was the turn of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which purely by coincidence was shut down at a moment where it was considering hundreds of complaints about an electric car company by the name of Tesla, which of course is owned by Elon Musk. We think that as the new week gets underway here, probably from Tuesday onwards, thousands of employees in the public health sector are going to be terminated. They are expected to include the leaders of several of the institutes at the National Institutes of Health, the men and women who have decades of experience safeguarding public health. And of course, the country is now pulled out of the World Health Organization under Donald Trump's orders, and so is not sharing information with the rest of the world at the very moment that H1N1 avian flu is spreading, is causing a massive increase in the price of eggs. I mean, I went to my local supermarket yesterday. You can't find eggs in Washington, D.C. for love nor money at the moment, and that is the pattern being repeated all over the country, with many people in the public health field saying this is, even if you wanted to downsize the government, this is precisely the wrong time to be hitting the public health field. But look, it's perfectly reasonable to think that there is fraud and waste in the government and that you are going to reduce the size of the government and reduce the fraud and the waste. But it is the anger, the disdain for these people that is being fueled not only by Donald Trump and Elon Musk, but by the architects of Project 2025, who said that their aim when Donald Trump returned to power was to create shock and awe. It was to create trauma for federal workers so that when they woke up in the morning, they couldn't even face going to the office. It's an extraordinary thing that is underway here. And some of these agencies, U.S. Agency for International Development, it took 60 years to build that thing up. You are not going to be able to wave a magic wand, even if you're lucky in 4 years' time and there's a new government that says, right, we need to get back into the international assistance and development game. They will not be able to wave a magic wand and put Humpty Dumpty back together very rapidly.
No, they're destroying organizations that have taken decades or more to build up with no idea about how to put them back together again. They're just slashing spending wherever they can see it. For, as far as I can tell, the increase in the extension of the tax cuts for the super rich, with no idea about A, what those people are doing, or B, whether the departments are worth holding on to, or C, whether there is actually any waste. And because if you smash something up, you can't go through it and determine whether it is being wasteful or not, because the thing doesn't exist anymore. So there doesn't appear to be any plan of any kind.
Yeah, and that's really where the lack of accountability comes in. I mean, you will have seen that bizarre press conference last week with Elon Musk and his 4-year-old son X in the Oval Office alongside Donald Trump. And I'm still, every time I see it, screaming at the television because I can't understand why not a single reporter in the room asked Elon Musk what he was doing there, much less what his 4-year-old son was doing there.
And what did you make of the power play? Because that's what it looked like to me. Everybody else, every other man I have ever seen in the Oval Office, regardless of who is the president, has gone in there with a suit and tie. They've combed their hair and they presented themselves in their best possible light. Elon Musk went in there with a baseball cap and a T-shirt on with his kid crawling all over him.
A baseball cap signed by President Donald Trump before that all got underway, because you'd really want to have a signed one for future posterity. Look, I mean, I think Elon Musk is clearly now enjoying undiminished power. Indeed, that event... he was there because Donald Trump was signing an executive order giving him even greater powers to start rooting through the bureaucracy. I mean, it was notable, I thought, that there were only a couple of moments where Elon Musk even mentioned President Trump. There was sort of limited amounts of praise for him and for his leadership. And there were, at one point, 8, 9, 10 minutes of Elon Musk holding forth in front of the White House reporters, with Donald Trump sort of looking rather uncomfortable as he sat there and occasionally kind of noticed the 4-year-old was getting a little bit too close to him for comfort. I mean, it was all just very, very odd. But oddest of all was this completely unspecified claim, backed up by no evidence whatsoever, by Donald Trump, that Elon Musk, by the time he's finished, will have uncovered $1 trillion in waste and fraud in the government. And they sat there talking about, government workers at the U.S. Agency for International Development taking kickbacks. I mean, kickbacks. President Trump, in his first term in office, owned a hotel in the center of Washington where every visiting foreign delegation that wanted to curry favor with him made sure that they all stayed and paid whatever rates the hotel wanted to charge. And these guys are sitting there talking about kickbacks at the U.S. Agency for International Development. I mean, maybe there were some kickbacks, but they didn't present any evidence to support the claims they were making.
Every accusation is an admission of guilt. Every accusation, an admission of guilt. Donald Trump just posted online, "He who saves his country does not violate any law." That's a phrase, does that go back to Napoleon?
I gather so, yes.
And that very, sorry to interrupt, but that very phrase was famously used by Anders Breivik, the Norwegian white supremacist mass killer, in his manifesto. There's no subtlety at all. He's saying the quiet part out loud with a megaphone.
Yeah, and by the way, the man who has posted this, he who saves his country does not violate any lives, sat in that any laws,
Yeah.
sat in that Oval Office encounter with Elon Musk, insisting that I always obey court orders. At the very moment there were lawsuits underway before the courts where appeals were being made because they were being brought by people who said, well, actually, Donald Trump is not obeying the judgments that were put into place just a few days ago. So, I mean, I think that the use of that phrase, he who saves his country does not violate any laws, is further raising the question of whether Trump, Musk, the entire administration are going to adhere to legal judgments or, in the days, weeks and months ahead, going to foment a standoff with the judiciary that will, at a time when Congress is being entirely supine, represent a major constitutional crisis here.
It's a coup. I wish we had more time to talk, but unfortunately we don't, Simon. But thanks for that. Simon
Cheers,
Marks, LBC's Washington correspondent.